Tia, I think the first thing we want to just get going, it's about COVID procedures and protocols. Again, you did an amazing job this season making sure everybody was safe. Do you want to give a little bit of overview of what we did for LYV and what's going to go, what's going to transfer to club season or anything new that you think about adding?
Well, so I think our the theme that I've had since we came back into the gym has been that safety is going to be our number one priority. That's always the case. I feel like when we're dealing with our athletes, but in this COVID-19 era, that's just added. There's a whole nother layer to maintaining safety with our athletes. And as I developed and worked with you and with the rest of the team on coming up with what we were going to do in our facility, it became very clear that we were going to just we were going to follow the procedures and the protocols that had been identified through federal, state, and local authorities. So, we use resources from CDC, the Virginia Department of Health, and of course the governor's executive orders, and then the Loudoun County Department of Health. And what I really like about that model is that we are able to pivot with any one of those organizations at any given time. Our procedures are based right off of what they do, so that just makes things a little more clear. That line's drawn very clearly for us. And so how that translated into LYV were, the social distancing requirements that we had in the facility. 6 feet of separation and masks are required at all times in the facility unless you're physically active on the court. Then you can not have your mask on, but then we have a 10-foot distance requirement for when you're not athletically active on the courts. And then we have a temperature station that everyone passes through. We have signage that they pass that verifies that they don't have any of the symptoms that would lead them towards not being allowed to come into the facility. And everyone has been great about knowing what those procedures are and reporting any sort of unusual behaviors or symptoms. And so that kind of wraps up how we've implemented what we've done at LYV. And I guess just to add to that, we've really recruited the parents to help us out with that. So our parent volunteers have been awesome. I just want to take a second to say thanks to everyone for coming in and being just as diligent as we are. So now going into looking in forward, as we look into the season coming up, there's going to be some things that are going to look a little different. So some things that we normally do in the month of November is we have an acceptance day, and we have a big production of everyone coming in and introducing coaches and everyone being able to ask questions. That's going to look a little different this year. We're going to have some Zoom meetings or some ways of electronically connecting. And then we're going to have each team be able to meet their coach and come in and have like a kind of a personal session and acquaintance and greeting with each other. And that's going to be a great opportunity to bring everybody back down to their small little groups, which is where we like to have them in this COVID-19 world. And then the other thing is the uniform selection. We normally have a try-on process. We all get to, it's fun to come in and try on our fun uniforms. But this year we're going to do everything online. We're going to have some great information for sizing and all that stuff. So, and on top of that, those are some of the changes that we see coming up. But the next layer of the COVID-19 safety is our response and mitigation procedures. And so when someone reports to us that they have come in contact with someone who has COVID-19, we put into place a very good protocol that we've come up with. And that is been something that Amy has been working on. She has been our COVID-19 manager throughout the LYV process, and she has been doing a great job. And so I would like to maybe, Rodrigo, we can hand it over to Amy and see if she will go through some of those details for us.
Hey guys. So first of all, I want to thank our parents for really cooperating and helping us out, right? Because they're the ones that are letting us know if their kids are having any symptoms or have been exposed to anyone. And then with that knowledge, then we carry that forward and decide what we need to do within the facility at NBVA. So just a couple things. As soon as we find out that there has been an exposure of some level, then we start to build a timeline, right? And we determine whether it was a primary exposure or what I'm calling a secondary exposure. So I'll just go over that real quick. A primary exposure is when someone was actually in the facility at NBVA and they didn't know they were contagious at that point, but they later find out through a test that they were at the facility while contagious, right? And so that's what we would consider a primary exposure. And at that point, we let parents of the team know, coaches know, really anyone who was in that small cohort know that they've been exposed. And then again, looking at different timelines, hang on a second. So looking at those different timelines, then we move forward and we decide how long maybe the team has to pause, right? Because based on our information from CDC, if it's a primary exposure, then we have to break for 14 days because that's the incubation period of the COVID virus. And we need those 14 days to make sure that no symptoms are arising, right? So that's a primary exposure. And then you can have a secondary exposure where someone has been exposed outside of NBVA, right? And so again, we make that timeline. We figure out when they were last at NBVA. Were they contagious at that point? Do we need to take any steps to isolate or quarantine the team from the NBVA facility? And we keep all of that communication steady with parents and with coaches, and we really keep everybody informed as quickly as we possibly can. And so far, parents have been really great about staying in touch with us and letting know if they've gotten tested and what those test results are. So I really appreciate that, and I ask that we continue that, especially throughout this winter season coming up.
Yeah, and one thing that I would like to, a question that we got is we have been functioning since back open since June, beginning of June, since we start going through the stages that the governor allow us to. And then during this time, we had 3 cases, right, Tia, of COVID that we were able to stop right away. And so I like to tell my team here is that like it's not, we try not to think it's like if we ever gonna have a case in our facility, because we do have a very high amount of people that come through our facility. It's when. And when we go through those cases, we want to make sure that everything is stopped right away. So out of those 3 cases, nothing happened. You stay home with that one family, and then none of the teams, none of the coaches got infected and did not become a spread, right? Yeah, that's what I understand based on the reports we get.
That's correct.
And we're gonna talk more about this, but Tad asked a question, Tad, about if we're gonna keep doing the volunteers that we did for LYV. That's a definitely yes. You know, we loved have the volunteers watching the match, helping us with cleaning up the balls for the kids. You know, so talk about this. Making sure that we stop the spread right away. If we know that the kids are in different sides of the court, and every time they play, the ball is completely clean and back into play in a tournament, now we can go back and be more confident that there is not a spread of COVID, among the teams, right? Which that's one of the big challenges you're gonna have throughout the winter season. We're gonna be playing different teams, and we are trying to be very selective what teams you're gonna be playing against and where we're gonna be playing. We're gonna talk a little more about this when you get to tournament selection, right? Tia, anything else that you'd like to add about the COVID-19 procedures?
I did want to add on to just what you were saying about the actual game time, because I know that I kind of glossed over that. We do have a set of we do have procedures in place that really do keep teams from interacting the least amount as they can. We recognize that the ball that we share is the highest place where there's multiple contacts. And so what we've done is we've really made our warm-ups separate, We don't allow, sharing of court time when they're warming up. And we have a 12 ball system that goes through every time a play is down, every time a ball is down, it's taken out of rotation, sanitized, and put back into a ball cart. So there's 12 of those balls being sanitized and rotated through a match. Each group has their own balls that they work with independently. So I just wanted to touch on that because I know that's has been a question of parents as far as how game time looks.
Yes, and it's a great it's great for the parents to understand that, and for our athletes because it is, we need to be strict. Warming up, for instance, like yes, we are making warm up a little different because we don't want athletes sharing balls in warm up because we want to make sure that if something happens. We are able to go back and say, okay, here's your team, and we know you didn't share a lot of equipment with another team. Otherwise, everything spreads. And with that in mind, I want parents to and athletes to keep that in mind. That's why we really believe in our NVPL event, the North Virginia Power League, that's hosted at Virginia Volleyball Center. And that's the place where, because we have been doing LYV with 650 athletes, that's how many athletes we have at LYV this year. We usually have about 1,500, which is a lot. 650 is still a lot, especially in COVID. We do feel like we have at least a little bit of experience to run a safe event going forward. And that's why we are going to place our teams mostly on NVPLs when the season comes. We're going to talk a little more about that.